Thank you. So I just want to say something about the UrbanA in Lisbon, just two slides actually, just of what we've been doing so far. So UrbanA, we're a team of 4 here in Lisbon. Duncan is co-host today, and also I think we have Ana Margarida and Mario here today. But basically what we've been trying to do, so we have this European process, which is translocal. And in Lisbon, what we're trying to do is to anchor that translocal process to what's happening here, grounded with all the activities. There's so much already happening here in Lisbon. So we try to have, starting off urban community of practice here in Lisbon. And our first step was in November 2019, so almost 6 months ago, where we all met in MORAR to convene. We had like around 30 participants from different groups to listen to who was there and on how to make Lisbon a city that was just and sustainable. And so before we did the walking tour, but it was really what we wanted again was to tap into that collective knowledge. And what we came out of it was really interesting. First, we wanted to bring these communities together, which we thought and saw that didn't happen too often, but that many solutions exist for these issues on sustainability and justice, but these problems persist. So that indicates something deeper, systemic causes that are not maybe being addressed by the initiatives today. That there's also a need to better connect communities and projects to really bridge them better. And that's also part of what we're doing here today. That the local participation needs deepening and more voices, especially from the municipality, for example, that need to be brought into these spaces of dialogue, of deeper dialogue. And also something about to make it easy to facilitate citizen interventions on how a community of people that want to do something for their city, how to make it easier, because there is so much happening already. So hopefully we can also learn from each other, from our experiences on how to support that activation. Duncan, next slide, please. So from that, we also wanted to focus more on one neighborhood, and this is Marvila, and we'll have here Louise that will talk more about this neighborhood, so I won't go much more into that. But we have this central question around the team here in Lisbon is how might an urban community of practice help manifest the dream of a sustainable and just Lisbon? So we'll also explore this a little bit deeper once we've done the breakout groups with you, also to get some insights beyond knowledge, beyond linking, how can we help this dream become really a reality? So with that said, I'll pass on to our first speaker, which is Rafael Calado, with the Fab Lab experience. So each speaker will have about 5 minutes to speak, to tell their story, okay, to enrich us. And then after this, we'll go into the breakouts. But without further ado, Rafael.
Hi, everyone. Glad to see you here. I'm from Fab Lab Lisboa. I'm glad to represent the Makers Movement in this presentation. Next. I'm an architect. Can I see the next slide, please? Okay. I'm an architect, but at the Fab Lab, I'm the program manager. So kind of also, I don't know, community manager. So what is a Fab Lab? Maybe not anyone knows. Well, Fab Lab is this fabrication laboratory. They started in MIT a long time ago, and they spread around the world very fast. And they represent somehow the makers movement, so people that do things, and they do especially objects and things, but work in a different way as others, because they just want to do things in a fast way. So Fab Lab started like that way. They felt the gap that was before people know to do everything digitally, but they forgot how to do that. Because everything was done with machines. So a Fab Lab is a place where you have a set of machines, and this one was set by the municipality. Why in this neighborhood? Well, it's a shabby neighborhood with not many opportunities. We were living in the bailout in 2013, and the city council decided to open a Fab Lab in that neighborhood just to change it somehow. There were many initiatives when one was the Fab Lab. So the idea was to have it open to everyone, so anyone could build their own stuff, and with the help of the staff we have. So we have people and the machines that can help anyone to make their projects. Maybe it's a 3D printer, maybe it's a CNC router. So machines that nowadays are very affordable, but not so much to have at home. But it was a city council initiative. Next, please. Next slide, please.
I think sometimes there's a little bit of a delay.
Okay. So what we do at the Fab Lab. So we never know what's going to happen. So people approach us with their projects, and they ask for our help. Sometimes it's just in the machines. Sometimes they need the help of the staff to build their own stuff. I can present you one or two projects. You see the loom in the middle. So there was a teacher that, for example, had an idea to make an affordable loom. They are expensive, and for the students. So she asked us to develop with her a loom, and then we have a loom for €2. After that, we evolved to workshops, and you can see many projects we have. For example, the one in the bottom with a boy with a bionic hand. Well, he's working with a project. It's open source. We work a lot of open source. It's work with the hospitals, and that is an enable project. So his parents came with the kids, and with the hospital, helped him making the hands. It's really cheap, for example. Next, please. Next slides. We also make a lot of workshops to teach people how to use our machines and to somehow improve their abilities. For example, we work in the top slide, in the image in the left, for example, we work with the community and our neighborhood, that is MORAR. We work with, for example, with immigrants, and they are here preparing a workshop about shibori. So we have repair cafes, we have concerts, we sometimes have activities in the open air, and we also have, in this occasion of the COVID emergency, we had a lot of makers that did want to help. So the makers movement gathered around the Fab Lab, and we started to make medical attire, we started to making masks, and that is a tool that a Fab Lab can give. It's the fast prototyping, anyone can come, it's fast to do, and it's a different paradigm. So people can produce locally what they want. You don't have to buy, you just have to have the materials, and you can do almost everything at the Fab Lab. So our motto is a place where you can do almost anything. Okay, so that's all for now. I think it's the 5 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you, Rafael. Duncan, can you go on behind? Sorry, before we move on. Thank you very much, Rafael. That was beautiful to see how a crisis, our last crisis, that was an initiative coming from the municipality of Lisbon, but that really enabled so much change and transformation in locally and activating the community in such a way. Can I just ask in a very short sentence, how you feel now that the Fab Lab has, what's been the impact in terms of sustainability or justice in the neighborhood or in Lisbon? Just a short sentence so we get a little bit of your reflection on that.
Yeah, I think the community, how do you say? I think we empower the community. I think it's the most important thing that I feel with the Fab Lab. So it was set there, and it completely is a tool, and it's a tool that works, and it has a very fast response because it's not like very bureaucratic, and anyone can come in the world. I think we are nurturing a community of makers.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for also starting us off so nice, so inspiring. So next up, sorry, we have Patricia from MORAR in Lisbon about the city as an instrument of spatial inequality. So Patricia, the floor is yours.
Patricia, you're unmuted.
A classic.
Sorry, I always forget. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here in showing you MORAR in Lisboa perspective on the urban issues, and to give you this contribution to the UrbanA arenas and conversations. So my presentation has 3 steps to understand how Lisbon has become an instrument of spatial inequality, and how, as Constanza said, Lisbon is such a good starting point to talk about housing rights and urban rights. So first, next, I would like to talk to you about the development of a specific urban model, which I think we can talk about by these 3 areas of debate, which is crisis, competitiveness, and financialization. I also think that spatial justice and ecological sustainability are not really priorities of this current urban model. And I have put it here, this image, which talks about sustainability from the point of view of the real estate market. So we can understand a little bit, and we can have a little bit of debate how the term sustainability can be used in many ways and can be sort of pulled out from the ecological sustainability perspective. I think it's very important to understand that crisis is not a new issue to Lisbon. So we can talk about a broader crisis, which is the development of Lisbon to a metropolitan scale has generated all sorts of problems in the municipality of Lisbon, but in a metropolitan and other municipalities, in a metropolitan scale to other municipalities. But also the model of competitiveness is a concept that started to be used in the Thatcher years and is now the basis of most European policies and national ones also. And it favors growth instead of social well-being or social cohesion, which means that our cities are being shaped by new logics and new interests that are very much based on the financialization of the economy. So I always think that if you join these 3 layers, you can have a better perspective on what is happening. Next. Next slide. So Portugal is a democracy since 1974, and you can, and during these decades, we have very few housing policies. And the most important one, the one which was more applied, was the property ownership. So the building and buying of your own house. This was facilitated by fiscal policies and bank policies, and promoted a culture of safety and saving money into property, which is basically what is happening. The property ownership, together with holding back regulation, underfunding housing and urban policies, and favoring urban management, so very specific issues, instead of urban planning, or which means a broader, more foreseeable future, put in instruments of participation and urban design, are issues that should be debated about the current transformation of Lisbon. Next. I also wanted to bring you to finish the priorities that MORAR in Lisboa now has in terms of as a synthesis, which is concerns that were already very present before COVID, before the pandemic, but also ones that became more important with the pandemic. So housing solutions for the homeless, the stopping evictions, the termination of the rental contracts being suspended, and all the issues about the payment of the loans, and more public housing also, always to contradict the current dynamics of private investment, and the formulation of a new rental law. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. It's interesting to dive again into these matters. It feels like we've been, at least I've been so closed in my house for such a long time. And I think that's been the experience of many of us, that just having this connection to the outer system and to these bigger changes is super profound. So I was wondering as well, like, so I see here your list of priorities, and some have become more present now with COVID, but do you see any changes from your experience, from your, I imagine that you're in touch with the municipality, with other actors, perhaps, maybe even the economic actors. Do you see any signs of change given this pandemic, the structural shock, or do you feel it's a little bit trying to keep?
No, not at all. I think things will, I think we are still in a very limbo moment, but the signs we are having is that everything will start all over again, or possibly even in a more aggressive way, in the way that it was. So the ideas that are spreading now from the government and from everyone is that we need to retake the logic that was before, because basically it's the only one that makes us grow and be economically developed. So the idea, what I wanted to tell you is that this is not exactly random, but actually is very well thought about, and it's very clear in most of the plans that we still have in Portugal, in all the scales, so regional, municipal, and all that. So it's not really something that you throw into the bin and after 3 months of pandemic, it's something that will be rescued, and probably in a more aggressive way.
Right, okay. Yeah, it reminds us when we started to connect with the communities here in Lisbon, how there was these deeper problems that persist, and you're pointing to how this logic of economic growth is one of those main drivers that is very difficult to shake off even with pandemic, right?
Sure.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you for that. So, and our final speaker to talk us from a community-led project in Marvila, which is this neighborhood where the UrbanA community also intends to go more on the ground and activate further and be more of a resource. So Wish, give us your perspective on what's happening there and how does that link to sustainability and justice?
Hi everyone, I'm Luis. I work at Res do Chão, which translates directly as ground floors. We are a small NGO and a non-profit, and work the city at high level by doing the rehabilitation and activation of ground floors, non-habitable ground floors and public spaces. We have been working in Marvila, which is a parish, a big one actually in Lisbon, and we've been in the last few years, since 2017, working closely with 4 different neighborhoods inside of the parish of Marvila. And through that, and through the working with the community, being it the people that live here in this public housing neighborhoods, and with the institutions, being them political or private institutions that work in these territories, we work through a community group that everyone makes part of. And these particular projects that arise from that partnership through the community group is called Transform Marvila with Parks and Bikeways, which is pretty straightforward on the title itself. If you can give me the next slide, Duncan, please. So this is a picture of the place where that particular project will be implemented. These are some of the neighborhoods that we are working on, and it's a very big public park that we are talking about, that is going to replace some public land that was vacant for 20-something years now. Most of these neighborhoods are the result of public policies in Lisbon. People used to live in other parts of many of the people that live here, not all of them, but used to live out of town, many of them into into houses that they themselves had built, not approved by the city council. And during the 90s, when Lisbon decided that it would be a city without shanty towns, they torn down those neighborhoods, and they just built these neighborhoods here, replacing the auto-constructed neighborhood that was in this very place, and they just relocated everyone here. At that point, it was told to everyone. It was told to everyone that they were getting more than the house. They were getting a place to live, which encompasses many other things, such as qualified public spaces, access to green spaces. And the reality is that until today, didn't really happen. The neighborhoods lack a huge amount of quality public spaces. They lack green usable spaces, and they lack a lot of accessibility and a good system of transportation to connect with the rest of the city, which ends up with communities that are kind of excluded from the city and that struggle to get out of these places. If you can give me the next slide, please, Duncan. And why do you say that this was a community-led project? Actually, the idea to transform all this land into a public park came from the tenants of these neighborhoods. They approached the community group, which they are a part of, the most important part, I would say. The community group said, okay, but we have to gather everyone and anyone that will jump into the project with us to make this a reality. When everyone was on board with the idea, we started thinking about how would the community group make some kind of moves in the terms of applying pressure to the political decisors to make this a reality. And so, as a form of maybe
30 seconds, Luis.
Okay, so we just applied the project for the public how do you call it? The shared budget of the city council, and it didn't pass actually. But after that, there was announced that Lisbon had been named the European Green Capital, and so we invited the mayor here and asked how would that green capital reflect in these particular places in the city. And we actually managed to make them assume that it was going to be a public park. We did a lot of participatory methodologies to get to what kind of park do we want, and now we are trying to understand if participation has a bigger role in the future park or not, and that's about it. We still are working on it.
Thank you, Luis. So what I love about this project really is that how you just said that in the end, you know, how with the help of the community group, so this was not just a bunch of citizens out there, there was a lot of organization there, which was, I think, was crucial, and with experience accumulated, but you were able to tap into a wider political commitment, also recognition with the European Green Capital, that actually is a way of basically having some endowment, international endowment. I think for Lisbon, it was around sustainable land use, sustainable urban mobility, green growth and eco-innovation, climate change adaptation and waste. So, but if you look at it from a macro perspective, that might be true, of course, to have that. But when you focus on different neighborhoods, then those ones manifest in a very different way. So it's lovely to see how you kind of like embark with this green capital wave, but you actually made your voices heard with your participation there. Super. I'm also mindful of time. Otherwise, I'd ask you a question of, I'm going to ask you anyway, just because I'd love to see how your project or your organization, being this community builder, bonder, if you want, how have you been attending to the community within this COVID? Because some of these priorities have changed. Just a quick response, just to see.
It's been tough to do it. Basically, from day one, we understood that there was a lot of things being done, but there was no real organization behind it. We tried to understand what was being done at different levels, at the city council level, at the parish level, at other NGOs and enterprises here that work on the territory, and we tried to bring everyone together to understand if certain kinds of responses were being doubled, if you could make the whole process optimized, you know. And now we are starting to come back here, and we are trying to reorganize everything in order to attend to the more prevalent issues that arise in the last few months. Yeah.
Super. So the importance of organizations as well. Oh, thank you. So this was very inspiring from you three, also to stretch our mind in different aspects of how urban sustainability and justice is being manifested and also being impacted and challenged or opened up with the pandemic. So